Tuesday, June 14th at 1 p.m. One of the rare times that I actually start exactly at 1 p.m. on the dot. It's Shally's Alley. We have a very special guest today. Oh my God, I got a picture in picture in picture. I got you on both screens there.
Here, let's edit that out here. Perfect.
No editing. This is all live. This is no Memorex. So live with me today, I have WizardSourcer, Jonathan Kidder. Oh, did you drop something there?
I've got my light going. Good to be here, everybody.
All right, turn on the lights and let's rock this party. So we met at SourceCon in 2011, right?
Yes,
that was quite some time ago, right? So like literally 11 years ago, a decade and a year ago that we met. And I think you were working at Best Buy at the time.
I was working at Best Buy under Allegis Global Solutions, and it was kind of my first job right out of school. And really, my team was like, you know what, you should go to a conference. And I started to kind of research conferences related to like recruiting and sourcing. And of course, SourceCon popped up number one in my search. And, I did some research and I was like, maybe I should go to this one. And it was being hosted in Atlanta at the time. And
my hometown.
Brand new, hometown of Atlanta. Brand new experience. I had no idea really about sourcing at the time. Brand new, right out of school. And I got to see you, Irina, Glenn, all the greats, Dean DaCosta.
That was fun time.
Many others. And it was like back-to-back sessions. And it just really blew my mind at the time. You were like the MC, so you did get a couple jokes. I remember that.
Yeah.
But you kind of went through like different sections, and you really shared a lot of valuable information too. It was, for someone starting out brand new, it was just so much information. I was very overwhelmed, but very just excited just to learn more about it. And it was definitely eye-opening on my end.
That's me, man. I'm always spilling the beans.
You were very.
I don't think
level.
anybody's created as many competitors for themselves as I have. When I started doing this, like in 1996, I can't remember how many. There were maybe like 6 or 7 people that did what I did. Not very many. And oh my God, John Sumsner had written a book on disc. That was like the first book on CD-ROM that was like about like recruiting technology and stuff like that. And I bought that in like 1996. Anyways, so back then it was maybe 7 people. A few years later, there were like 3 or 4 sourcing teams in the world. So by the year 2000, there were a handful of maybe 30, 35 sourcing teams. 4 years after I started. But nobody really called themselves a sourcer until much later. I started speaking at SourceCon all over the world and other conferences in ERE. And I think at some point I saw on LinkedIn there was like 150,000 sourcers. And I was like, oh my God, I was like, I created this thing, this beat. Like there's all these people now that compete for me, for my jobs. But now it's like 1.1 million, man. So I literally started, like I lit the fire on something that became a over 1 million person industry, and it's continuing to grow and spread. And so,
that's amazing.
Good times.
When did it click too for you? Because you saw the birth of the internet. Honestly, you saw it coming. When did it click in your head? You're like, oh my gosh, leads, internet connections.
It was like, I was getting whooped. My first job at an agency staffing firm, right? Where like it's all about the commission and contingency searches, and they actually had some contract searches as well. But they didn't really have a lot of training. It's like, here you go, here's your phone, and there was no technology really. They had CPaaS for their ATS, which was horrible green screen technology. They had Lotus Notes for email, which replicated once a day. I mean, it was like whatever. And so, I'm seeing everybody else ringing the bell, making placements, and I'm sitting there by myself going, this isn't working. So like maybe 2 months into it, I had my laptop at night at home, and I was dialing up literally like 38,000 baud, dialing up to like bulletin boards, and I was like, what the fuck? Might as well, like, hey, does anybody here happen to know? I don't know anything about this thing called Oracle. Has anybody ever heard of this Oracle DBA? It had like just come out. Okay, seriously, it was like day one of Oracle DBAs or whatever. And some guy on this bulletin board was like, yeah, I know somebody, but they're not in this board, they're in this other board. So he gave me the address for the other board. I'm like, all right. So I connected to the other board. Again, dial up, create an account, all that. I'm like, hey, somebody told me that there's a so-and-so here. His name was Sashi Joshi. I still remember because it was my very first placement.
Yeah.
And and I just made a connection through that, and that's when it clicked. It was like, oh, Sashi had never posted resumes anywhere. He wasn't even looking. He just got gigs through friends.
Wow.
People were like, hey, check this out. And he was like one of the first few, like mega Oracle DBAs. I remember I placed him, and the bill rate was $250 an hour. We're talking about in the 90s here. Okay.
Incredible.
It was so high in demand. It was so high in demand. So from that time on, I would go home and dial up, and they used to make fun of me at the office. They're like, oh my God, here comes Shally with his floppy disk. And, I used to call it my sneaker net because I would, come in, and I knew, the internet was there, but they didn't even believe in the internet. And I was like, we don't believe in the internet. We just use the Lotus Notes. So,
wow.
Yeah, that lasted about a year before I just crushed every company record that they had. Most placements, most contractors out, most placements in a week, highest bill rate. I mean, everyone. And it was like, hey man, how are you doing? I'm like, you remember that sneaker net thing that you used to make fun of me? That's literally all I'm doing. So bye, see ya. I'm out of here. Somewhere where they don't make fun of me. And that was the beginning of the beginning of the beginning of the end.
Right.
So how did you
get
into this?
Yeah.
Because you were like, you were at Best Buy. This was your first job. And all of a sudden you find SourceCon. But how did you even start?
So that's a good question. I went
recruiting.
to school. I went to school for like communications, marketing, and I really felt like I was going to get more into like advertising, social media. At the time, social media was just
publishing.
Publishing. It was. I went to school around 2007, and Twitter was just on fire at the time. And I just recognized the benefits of that. Like, wow, I should really learn more about this. So I went to school and got a degree in communications marketing and got an internship and fell into kind of social media too at the time. And from there, kind of my first job after my internship was at a company called Allegis Global Solutions. And they were looking for someone to do social media employment branding. Hey, can you manage Best Buy's Twitter account? Can you, share YouTube videos about our career process, how to prepare for interviews, and so forth too as well. So I started in that area, and I would go in on site locally to Best Buy, and they put me right next to the recruiters. So every day I would hear them on the phone talking and screening candidates. And I was hearing their wins every day. Like, oh, we got this person submitted. And I'm like, maybe I should get into that. So I talked to my manager, and at first they're like, hey, let's get you into more lead generation. Let's get you into sourcing. At the time, they felt like sourcing was just like entry level. Like, here, just do this, find leads for us externally. And I fell into that around 2011 and just absolutely fell in love with it too. Because I would find leads, I would engage them, get them excited about opportunities, and then I would submit them to recruiters, and I would do that. And I had my weeklies too as well. And from there, it just really, really took off too. And then from that experience, I was like, maybe I should find a conference or something. And then I found SourceCon, and then I got to meet you as well, and meet many others. And from there, it just really took off too. So social media.
Never were the same after that. That's funny.
And
never the same.
So fun. I love just engaging people, getting people over the phone, selling too. And it's such an easy sell too. Like, hey, do you want to make more money? Do you want to work on this type of team? And it's just been a fun experience thus far too as well.
Yeah, well, it's I think after we met and you learned some of the stuff I had to teach you, all of a sudden your billing rate like tripled, and now you're like global head of all things sourcing at Amazon or something like that, right?
Yeah, I'm a tech sourcer at Amazon. I've been there for about 3.5 years, and we've got a pretty big team there. and I get to train and mentor many junior level sourcers, and that's something I really enjoy too, because you can source, but after a while that becomes kind of mundane. I really like to train. I like to see other people grow and succeed, and so that's why I really got into just training people. I created my own blog, WizardSourcer.com,
Mm-hmm.
just to share articles in the industry, and it just kind of took off. I started that in like 2016, just sharing stuff, what I was hearing in the market, and it really took off from there.
And then you saw that I wrote a book.
Yeah,
and so you copied me. You're like, I can do that. If that dumbass can do it, I can do it too. And so then you're like, I'm not just gonna write one book. I'm gonna write fucking 9 books. Of course, my first book has more pages than all of your 9 books combined, because it was like this thick. But then I wrote another one, and then I wrote another one. Now my third book is my last one, man. I'm done. You can keep the rest of it. You're like, I am done.
There's so many different categories to focus on, because I thought about that too. Like, I could do one big one, or I could do little ones.
Yeah, put me in your next book. I'm happy to do that, but I am not writing another book. Editorial and editing and publishing. Oh my God, the nightmares. Just forget it.
On average, it takes me about, I don't know, 6 to 12 months on average for each book to write. And I just kind of go back and forth. I bullet out everything I want to cover in the book. And there's just so many topics that, if you look online, like, for example, diversity, Boolean sourcing, there's no books about that topic.
Well, I wrote a bunch of articles and blog posts about it for a long time. Yeah. And I could write a book, but like I said, the whole concept of writing books is like
it's so hard,
painful, and oh man, and here's my absolute worst experience. Okay.
Yeah, let's hear it.
We were so close to getting this, literally about to ship the proofs, the 200 proofs that the printer required. Okay, right before. So you have to. They force you to buy 200 copies that are proofs, right? Yeah. So they sent us the 200 proofs, and that was supposed to be the seal of, okay, we got it. Now we're gonna go to print. Well, I get the proofs, I get the 200 books, I grab a box, I open one up, and I flip to the page on Bleco, I think it was. Was that? I think it was Bleco. Yeah. And then I just go facepalm, because about a week before that, Bleco shut down and sold to a private company and was gone. So literally, I had like a chapter on Bleco, and I was so excited because nobody had ever written about this, and I didn't even realize. I mean, I knew that they had sold, but I didn't realize that it was in the book. I mean, I knew it was in the book, but I just didn't connect the dots. So I opened the book, and it opens up to Bleco, and I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah, you're like, no,
a whole section. So I was like, so we had to go back and tear it out, and but like there was stuff like that. There was like Facebook. Remember when you could do Facebook graph search? That was in the book. Now it's obsolete. I mean, forget it.
Remember that? That was amazing too. That was, I think they connected that. They realized that sourcers or other salespeople, marketing people could find people and start messaging them, and I think Facebook saw that, and that's probably why they took it away. Or
why Facebook? I know exactly why they took it away.
Why did they take it away?
Because here's an example. Somebody was shopping for a wedding ring online, and the Facebook beacon caught them shopping for wedding rings. So like they knew that the person was shopping, and it was a Facebook beacon.
Right.
So when they went into Facebook, there were ads on their page about wedding bands, right?
Yeah.
And that person's spouse saw that on their page and was like, "Oh my God, you're proposing! You're getting," and it was and that happened a million times, right?
Yeah.
So people complained so much about it that they had to essentially shut down a big part of that, and that's that. So it was such a exposure privacy violation. So I know that's what happened, but honestly, you know what? Get rid of Facebook. I'm done. The only reason I'm still on Facebook is for the group. Other than that, talking about things that go away. What trends are you seeing right now?
I had one similar in my book. I wrote a book about talent sourcing tools tools. I had a full, probably 3-page Zap Info. Remember that tool?
Oh yeah, right.
Zap Info. I was
Just
like,
3 pages. I could write 100 pages on that one. Man, I kept using Zap Info.
Every day.
They shut down, right?
Yeah.
They shut down and they sold it. They sold to Indeed and tried to. Well, I kept using it. I still used it because it worked for another like 6 months. You couldn't download it anymore, so I kept using it. And then when they finally disabled it and came out with the Indeed version, I got that one and I started using the Indeed version because I was so hooked on it. I'm like, I just want to be able to download resumes. And it was so much fun. And then they got rid of that one, and now it's been relaunched again, but now it's like literally a web app. It's
is it worthless? Is it usable?
It's just for Indeed. Just for Indeed. Like it only works on Indeed. You can use it for resumes, but you have to have the resume already.
Yeah.
And then it'll help you parse resumes. So it's kind of like me. Too bad.
It's a bummer. Yeah.
What other trends are you seeing?
So I would say for trends, I would say just the market, especially during COVID, really took off for tech talent. So I'm just hearing trends about engagement, when you reach out, how many reach outs, getting people to actually respond to you. So people have been really interested in email campaign types of tools in general. I know you really talked about email deliverability, and that's something that I really have thought about too as well. If I send out an email through a campaign, is it getting delivered? Are they clicking on it? Email tracking. I would say that's kind of a newer thing that I'm seeing in mind. It's just like people aren't using LinkedIn as much anymore. I've talked to so many tech people that don't use LinkedIn. They maybe check it once a month, for 5 minutes, and that's kind of it. But email is still king. It's number one. For a while, I was like, I'm going to cold call, I'm going to text, I'm going to use cell phone numbers. But I think people just in general are just kind of annoyed by that in the tech industry. So email has still been my number one way to communicate.
Texting still works for me. And also what I found is iMessenger and Facebook and Slack and Snapchat and Pinterest and all those others, because most of them, not all of them, but most of them are tied to the phone number. So if I have the phone number, I can use that to find them another way. And they may not respond to text messages, or they may not even get them. But if you find them on like a Snapchat or something like that, a lot of them are, a lot of folks are on that. So
I would say that's a good area too. I would say, and the nice thing about like any sort of social media or email or text, many times it just goes right to my phone. So I get a ping if I get a text or any Twitter update or any Facebook or Slack update. I've got the apps. It pops up on my phone. So people are receiving it. It's getting delivered too. So that's a huge thing that's important when you are kind of messaging people in general too. Called The Art of the Recruiter Message. And really, I just break down how to really engage people effectively too. Like, what are the channels to communicate? How many times does it take to reach out to someone? On average, how many times do they click on it, view it? Tracking all that information will make you really successful.
How many times does it take?
Oh, it's, prior to COVID, I would say, 3 to 4 times. But now after COVID, just due to demand,
7.
5, 6, 7, 8, like lots. And I have lists for my managers, hiring managers, to reach out to leads for me. So I have them reach out, and they don't even respond to hiring managers now too as well. So because that's something when you have hiring managers say, hey, I'm interested in your background. Here's a project that I'm working on. And if they don't even respond to that, good luck as a recruiter trying to get them engaged. So I would say the demand has really increased too as well. So Shally, with your tons of experience too, you probably have gone through the .com bust, you've gone through recessions. I know right now it's kind of a bullish market. What's kind of your predictions for kind of sourcing in the sourcing world, just with everything happening in this current market? What should we do?
Turning the tables on me, huh?
Oh yeah.
All right. I got it. So looking at it from a macroeconomic point of view, and looking at some of the bigger indicators like financial, world trade, purchasing power parity, gross domestic value, and product, and consumer price and producer price indexes, and all these things, you can see some patterns that are pretty obvious. And it's essentially a compression that sometimes is referred to as an adjustment. I was predicting this. I was talking about this like in the early days of COVID, in the first like 3 months of
Yeah.
COVID. I was already saying, guys, hold on, brace, because we're going to go into a hiring freeze. We're going to stop hiring. A lot of companies are going to say we don't want to do layoffs, so they're going to hold on to their people so they don't look bad and so they don't lose business and things like that.
Right.
And we're not going to have any hiring until this thing goes away. But when it goes away, what's going to happen is the floodgates are going to open and all the recs are going to become available all at once because nobody does any freaking headcount planning or, So if a company was holding off on hiring for a year, and during that year they would normally open 20 recs, on week 1 of the pandemic being officially officially like no longer lethal or whatever, boom, 20 recs, right? And everybody did that, and it's like nobody's looking at the other people saying, well, maybe we should wait a while. Or no, it was just like no titrations, just boom. So what I was talking about was hold on and don't do that, and instead, go slowly, prioritize, go slowly, because what's going to happen is if we do that, then we're going to have an adjustment. It's basically like an accordion. Exactly.
Yeah.
So all the breath, think of it as the accordion or the bagpipes, all the breath was pushed out of the economy and people were literally holding their breath. Then they did a big inhale. Oh, and that's been the last year. Guess what happens after the big inhale?
The big exhale.
Nobody's going to hold their breath again. They held their breath for a year and they inhaled and now they're like, oh my God. And then it's like, big exhale and then back to normal breathing. So that's literally what's happening. It's going to be up and down for some industries. It's going to be, some will be affected. What you're seeing in the technology startups, though, is investment that was there during COVID, and these companies usually have a 1 to 2 year pain point, right? So after about a year and a half, 2 years of funding a company that hasn't started turning a profit, they start asking questions. So that's where the funding starts getting cut off. So that's what you're seeing. A lot of these tech companies were being encouraged to hire fast. Yeah. And so some of them hired more people than they needed because they were being encouraged to hire fast. And now they're pulling funding. And so they're like, that's why you're seeing offers being rescinded and stuff like that. So that's a very unique, strong exhale reaction to, right? But don't worry, we're going to come back to, we'll start breathing normally in 6 months or a year. The other thing that I think that the other part of what you asked is what's happening kind of with the industry. There was a period where there were too many tools launching all at once, and most of them were incompetent, and there was a lot of bad noise in the industry. I'm talking about everything from AI to, I'm not saying just sourcing. I'm saying recruiting in general. There was all these tools and technology that, some of them were really good, but they were unfortunately drowned out by all the noise of all these other ones that were terrible, that are all out of business. Or they've been acquired and, chopped up and gone into other. So now we're starting to see that the key players actually strengthen their positions. So, for example, Seekout has some pretty good game-changing technology with consolidating all of their searches into one complex search. That's exactly what you and it's exactly what I taught you how to do in 2011 manually. Like if you were a scuba diver, you would know how to do decompression charts like a Navy SEAL by writing them on a slate. Well, nowadays that stuff is done with a handheld computer. Well, the same thing was what I taught you was the Navy charts of Navy SEAL diving, right? But now you use a computer. Well, that's what's happening. So Seekout's got this technology that essentially automates that. You still need to know how to do it, and it's always good to know the tables in case you don't have a computer. And it's always good to be able to do something by yourself without having to buy a tool. But that's what's happening is these larger, more successful tools are starting to consolidate their strengths and build in the areas that were major gaps.
Right.
So, for example, go ahead.
And I mean, they started maybe with contact finding extensions. I know there's been so many that have come and gone in that area. And that was
Hmm.
like the number one. Here's an extension. Here's how to find someone's cell phone number, email. And many companies have like just started there, and then they started
Yeah.
expanding from there. If it's searching, or AI automation searching, or email campaigns, or whatever else Seek Out has expanded into. And yeah, Hiree, Seek Out, those two have been really focused on just optimization too. Another one, Intello, too. That sounds like they're doing really well over there too, with some
That's
of the
one
tools.
category of tools, but then there's
Yeah.
also like the bigger picture project management type of tools that bring things together and connect the dots, right? They're like the cartilage and the tendons of technology, where they're starting to allow you to do integration. So what I'm seeing is a good example, Greenhouse, right? One
Oh
of their
yeah.
biggest advantages is their ease of API. You can if you're a sysadmin with Greenhouse, which doesn't take a whole lot of technical expertise, and you have a little bit of technical knowledge, you can activate an API key and connect just about anything, because they're designed with an API first mentality. So that is allowing for these technologies to come up that are putting things together where they used to be independent systems. You have to log into the CRM to do this, but then you have to move them to the ATS and log in there to do that. Then you have to go over here, you have to go to that tool to get their email, and then this tool to import the product. So all that stuff is being brought into a centralized point, but it's still best in class application. So you still use Seekout, and you still use Swordfish, and you still use LinkedIn, but Greenhouse allows you to connect all three.
Right.
So that's the next generation. And then the other one is outreach. I was starting to explore this about a year ago, where I was looking for a solution that was capable of integrating sequences with text messaging, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, all of that.
All
And
together.
the closest, yeah, all together in the same sequence.
Wow. Yeah.
The closest I ever got to that was with a system that was built for telecommunications contact management in an inbound outbound call center environment, and it was a really smart tool. But they the implementation of it was way we were like we were the first ones to try to do it, and it was way too technically complicated. Things started happening, like the texting would go wild. We had one occasion where the same individual got 200 text messages. A total machine
Right.
error, like it's a glitch. But
Yeah.
that kind of stuff will really cramp your style. So it never really got off the ground, and I haven't seen anybody really do that now, where you actually have the ability to send an email followed by a text message followed by a Facebook message, and all of it is tracked back. So I'm still hoping that that's going to happen, because it happens already in other systems, but it's all inbound. So
Right.
there's these audience listening or customer service listening technologies that will monitor Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, and allow you to respond from a central location, but they
Right.
have to be inbound. You can't
Mm.
you can't start the message. It's a response only system, right?
Hmm.
Because everything comes into your CRM, but it doesn't know how to. It knows how to check everything. It knows how to check 100 places and bring them in, but it doesn't know how to send them back out again to 100 places. If it comes in from Twitter, it can reply to Twitter,
Right.
but it doesn't know
Right.
how to send it to 200 places. So somebody's going to have to figure that out.
Right. So I guess with that in mind, what's the next thing for you? Is it more just integration automation tools, or what's kind of the next thing that recruiters? I know for us for a while it was just, hey, contact finding extensions, hey,
Yeah,
email, mail merging,
automation,
automation tools, texting tools. Uh,
automation,
yeah,
simplification, velocity. I'm talking a lot
velocity.
about talent velocity, being able to leverage, things like rediscovery, get more out of your applications, get more out of your system, contact more of the people that you already have, update them, keep them engaged. So it's got more to do with like accelerating the workflow, where it would take 5 recruiters to do the job. It's now taking only one,
Wow.
because of the augmentation in technology. And by the way, this is not a bad thing, because the need for recruiters has more than
It's going
a
up.
hundredfolded, right? So there's not enough recruiters. So it's not like 5 recruiters are being replaced by 1 recruiter and 4 recruiters are losing their job. No, 5 recruiters are being replaced by 1 recruiter, and those other 4 recruiters are being that 1 recruiter for 5 other companies that didn't have a recruiter before, and there's even more need than that. So
Yeah,
the hiring insanity is like,
it's insane.
whoa, what is going on with the recruiting hiring right now?
And I would say for a while, peak of COVID, once everything kind of settled, I was getting 1 to 2 offers a day. It was insane. Just
Was
over
I
the
one of
email.
those? I was one of those recently. I was one of those. I think I was like, please,
I think
please,
you
please,
were like,
please
please,
come work with me.
it was like so many. So it was like, wow, it's kind of slowed down a
I
lot.
only want to hire
But
people I know because I've been burned so many times. I'm like, I only want to hire people I know. I don't even want to post
yeah,
a job. I think I told you that. I'm like, I don't even want to post
yeah,
a job because I'm getting applications from people that say that they're this, but they're not. And it's like, so then I ended up creating a test. So
yeah.
now I have a test. Now I have like a real, actually have like every other candidate in my ATS, they go through a test, and now I'm okay. I'm okay. So I'm all right.
So
I won't stop reaching out to you though.
do you, do you have like an assessment?
Yep.
What sort of screening questions do you
Yep.
cover with like a sourcer? What's do you cover like fundamentals? Like here's modifiers, operators. Talk through Boolean string. Where do you find people? What
Yeah,
types
it's a
of
3-tier.
questions?
It's a
Yeah,
3-tier assessment. So the first gate is just answering some phone screen questions where we have it's a scorecard. We have a
yeah,
scorecard that has rubrics, and then we have some 7 basic questions. And I want to do this on the phone with the person. So if they
right.
apply, I'm going to call them right away, and I'm going to do this on the phone and say, hey, can you answer some questions? So if they make it through that, if they pass the threshold for the rubric, then while I'm on the phone, I say, I'd like to send you a project. Would you be okay with that? Because the next step would be a full-on interview. So the phone screen is like 15-20 minutes at the most,
Right.
right?
Okay.
And
Nice.
it's these few questions, and it's pretty much pass or fail. And I tell them right away. I don't say, oh, I'm gonna get back. I'm like, I'm sorry, but this is not the right place for you, right? Because this is what we're
Right.
doing, and I'm sure you're great, but it's not. So then I'm like, all right, can I send you a project? Because the next step would be an interview, and I would expect that you would have interviews for about an hour. So take about an hour and do this project. And I send them a spreadsheet with some instructions and what to do, and it's got a very specific rubric in there. They complete it. On the honor system, meaning that I'm telling them don't spend more than an hour. By the way, I know what an hour of recruiting and sourcing looks like. I've been doing it for 25 years and trained about everybody in the industry. So if you spend more than an hour, I can tell. And I'm please
Yeah.
begging you, don't spend more than an hour, because I don't want you to spend more time than what. And
Yeah.
because this is an interview, right? So they'll either do it or not. If they don't do it, that's the second screening. If they do it and send it back, then it's got some scoring built in. And then the third one essentially is the final review, which is like an actual final interview, but with an offer in hand.
Mm.
So they really
Wow.
only phone screen once, online sort of take home test, then a full on interview with the decision maker, myself, or someone that's actually going to say thumbs up. And by the end of that interview, we are actually making an offer.
Wow, that's amazing. And kind of for my team, I have to do all the external interviewing for recruiters. So I do kind of a 60-minute session with them. Different questions, but it's kind of eye-opening for me because many senior experienced recruiters, sourcers don't know
Mhm.
Boolean basics. Like, can you give me a site search? Can you talk about operators, modifiers? Can you just talk over
Yep.
any sort of example that you've used in your career? And many times, say I use LinkedIn, I look at the job boards and I leave it like that. So, have you experienced that too in your career, where you just kind of talk to people and you're like, you've been
Oh
in the industry
yeah.
for 10 years and you don't know just like the basic stuff in general too. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's why the quick assessment that we do is not
Yeah,
um, a it doesn't have like Boolean questions or anything
yeah,
like that. The scorecard, it's got a few more happy to share with you offline, but it's got a few more
yeah,
general
yeah,
questions that are about like how would you solve for this. I'll give you one example.
yeah,
So this this is funny. I'm hopefully not embarrassing somebody here, but this is a really good example of exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah.
So I'm talking to this candidate. They applied. I literally emailed them within 10 minutes because I get a notification through Slack that says there's a new candidate. I look at the profile and move on and move quickly. And I sent them a message and I'm like, hey, I'm interested in talking to you. So within a few minutes, is it okay if I call you? Do you have time right now? And they're like, no, but I'm free tomorrow. So we booked in a meeting. And so they come to the meeting. maybe about 5 minutes into it, I asked this question. And the question was this: how do you find phone numbers for people that you need to talk to? And it wasn't,
Yeah.
do you use any tools or extensions or
Yeah.
whatever? I mean, literally, the person could have said the white pages. This has got nothing to do with technology. It just has to do with resourcefulness and how would you go. You can say, well, I call their mom, or I'm gonna call him for. You could have said anything, right? So they're like, I'm sorry, what are you saying? I'm like, how do you get contact info? Let me clarify.
Right.
How do you obtain contact information for someone that you found? You're a sourcer. You find people. How do you obtain contact information for these people that you find? Hello? 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 They hung up.
Wow.
They hung up.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like, I'm not really sure. I don't know how to. It was like literally they ended the interview by disconnecting the call. And then I thought maybe the call went bad. So I texted and called and no response. Then I get a message from our coordinator. The coordinator says so-and-so decided to withdraw from the process.
Wow.
Wow. Wow.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Thank goodness. And again, that's not about bullying. It's literally,
No.
it's you're sourcing. The job for sourcing is to find people. One of the things you got to do is contact them.
Right. Right. How do you find them? That's just 101 too. That's
Yeah.
just
And there's like 7 or 8 other, I think altogether there's 11 questions in that quick phone screen that shouldn't take more than 15 to 20 minutes. Some of them are pretty easy to answer. Like he could have said, well, I use a directory, or I use contact, whatever. Boom. That's it. It's a quick answer.
Yeah. Yeah. No, pretty simple. Wow. Well, yeah, I could kind of talk over kind of my books too as well. I've written on a couple different topics here. So, and it's been really fun. It's become a hobby for me. During COVID, the peak of COVID, I had so much free time that I was like, you know what? There's so many different topics where if you do kind of just a general search, there's really nothing online, like how to even message people. There's no books related. There's lots of blog posts. There's
books
many
about
YouTube
sales and sales marketing. Yeah, right.
and I feel like no one hasn't tackled.
I'm getting a commission for selling your book, right? I mean, it's just
This is like
50-50. That's fair, right? 50-50.
Boom. And there's nothing available, people. And Boolean strengths, of course, Full Stack Recruiter and a couple other ones. Maybe even your books cover Boolean, but just there's not a basic one that just kind of breaks down the level of what I talk over to as well. And then how to speak tech, how to phone screen, how to engage people. I break over all the major, roles and in the tech field, and how to phone screen, how to source, how to create different strings, and so forth too as well. And then top talent sourcing tools, I cover all the different topics, lots of different categories to it. In general, talent source is more about, here's my overall strategy. Here's how I break down here's how I do an intake call. Here's how I create different strings. Here's how I engage people online. Here's the communities. Here's the tools that I use. Diversity sourcing, HBCUs. Here's how I find them online. Name generation, communities, how to engage.
Oh my God. As you're going through this, I'm realizing that's literally, each one of those is a chapter in my book.
I could have combined them. I know.
Yeah, you could.
So
well, you know what?
Yeah.
You know how you have like that Harry Potter box set? You need to sell a box set, right? The WizardSourcer box set.
I totally, I totally need to do that. And really it is. I could combine them all, just like your book. Every chapter, you break down, every in-depth detail too. So
the way I wrote my book, honestly, was because the first one was really a survey or a report on all things sourcing at the time. Then the second one was meant to be a textbook, which is still used to teach courses at university, and it works that way. But like a lot of other textbooks, it's not something you pick up the front page and read to the last page. It's more like you skip around, and it's more like a reference guide, right?
Yeah.
So the third one, what I wanted to do was really put together an actual book that you could read, right?
Yeah.
And that's where it has like the beginning of the story of how did sourcing start? Where did it start? What's the economic significance of it? Why is it important? all the way through to like what you're talking about, the intake meeting,
Wow.
a bunch of search. So
Right.
it covers all of that. It even covers some of the things that I haven't seen on yours. You might want to take this
I'm gonna
on.
take them notes here.
Yeah, which is the regulatory and compliance issues.
Yeah. Yep. That's important too as well, and especially over the talent sourcing tools. Like I summarized in the beginning of the book, like, hey, consult legally with each of these. Like, make sure you talk to HR, just because we just don't know different countries, what they can use, what they can't use with data. So that's
And
really,
even here
really,
domestically, for
yeah.
example, did you know there are 11 government agencies that have oversight to what we do? 11.
No, no,
Yeah,
11.
most people don't even they don't even think about that. I mean, there's a whole chapter on that. Of course, OFCCP, which has
Right.
financial overs, like they can fine you, but EEOC. But
Yep.
there's a bunch of other ones as well. There's the Americans with Disabilities, ADA.
Right.
There's Sarbanes-Oxley, and they actually impact what we do because they're allowed to look at our data. In some cases, they're allowed to, So now in my job now, I'm actually responsible for all things strategy and systems. So
Mm.
I work closely with our chief privacy officer on some of these things, and it's
Wow.
opening my eyes up to like a bunch of things that
Kind of scary then too.
I wish I didn't know, right?
Right, managing or having data too. Yeah, and HR. That's really good to have that. Just to know that information is really important too as well.
Yeah. So I haven't
Right.
seen a book cover that. Of course, that's like not the most exciting.
Yeah, and I'm like, ah. But on top of that, I actually worked with a developer and I created my own extension tool called Recruiting Wand. And this is the peak of COVID. I'm like, why don't I just create a tool like Text Expander, but more for LinkedIn? So what it basically does is you can go to any public profile on LinkedIn and you could choose a message that you want to message someone with, and it just auto-populates. So that do this, majority like, why don't I just create one for free? And it works for me. Maybe not.
It
It
auto
wouldn't work for
populates
everyone.
from like a list of messages or something.
From their profile. So if you would pop it up right here, the extension would pop up, and then you would choose a template that you want to populate. I added about 25.
That's what I meant. The template, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah,
it uses their information and then like a list of messages that. Yeah. Does it work
Yeah.
with Recruiter
Yeah, it can. If you you can,
emails or whatever?
it could, yeah. You could go internally and do the same thing. It would pull up the same information. So you see how
Right.
it pulled up my name, my location, my
Name,
education,
company.
my
Yeah.
location. Sometimes it doesn't pop up, but you could just highlight anything, or here you could highlight that, and then just click
And
on
you can
the
send
button.
them more personalized. But yeah, that's the one thing that LinkedIn, with
Sure.
LinkedIn Recruiter, you
Yeah.
can send batch emails, but you can only add their first name for personalization. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I wish they would totally make it automated. I wonder why LinkedIn just doesn't do that, where it'd just be like, hey, auto-populate their name, their company, their location, their industry, their skill sets. Why don't you think LinkedIn hasn't done something like that with LinkedIn Recruiter?
It's not in their best interest.
Really? It would just automate it pretty much. So you could just go in.
It's not in their
Just
best interest. Yeah.
Really? That's interesting.
Um,
Because
it-
they make
as
it
it is
slower.
right now,
Yeah.
one of the problems right now is with too much unsolicited messages.
Right.
And I don't know if you've ever tried to do this, but yeah, I've flagged a few messages as spam,
Yeah.
and maybe 4 or 5, not that many. And they open a ticket, and within a day or two, I get a response. And every single time I flag them, the response is, "This does not appear to be a violation of our terms because they paid for that."
Right.
So it's kind of like, okay. So let me put what I'm saying. Let me put it together.
Yeah.
So that
Let's hear it.
I want to be very clear. They want you to pay for that. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Because if somebody pays to spam me and I report them as spam and say I don't want to get these kinds of messages, they say, no, you signed up for this, and it's not spam. So, because we paid for it, or they paid for it. Okay, great. Now, if you do what you're talking about, and you can send the messages out for free, they're not getting paid.
They're not gonna like that.
Right.
Right. So, and then what you would do is you could copy this template. You could use their services. You could use their recruiter message and copy that and add that. You could message them directly.
Oh, you have to copy one at a time?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
so
not why don't you have a button that includes that copies and pastes? Oh, because you can't see where it goes.
I can't see where it goes, but yeah,
Oh, okay.
I know Text Expander, they allow you to do that. It just pops up, a little bubble pops up, and you can post it right
Magical
in there.
does the same thing, because you're doing it on the
Excellent.
spot.
Yep.
Yeah, you're doing it like you're in the box that response goes. You're right there. So there you put the and then paste it there. But with yours, it's over there.
external.
So yeah, how do you get? Yeah, but copy and paste is not that hard.
Copy paste, it's not too hard. Yeah, I was like, I'm just gonna make a free one. I added all my favorite templates up to 25, and because I'm like, I do the same.
I love how
thing
you
every
named them.
day.
That's just brilliant. That
I'm
the
like,
name template 1, template 2. Only you know what template 1 means.
I had some trouble working with my developer too on that. Like, I'm like, come on, here's the templates. But all in all, it works. It's not the best, but it's free. So,
How do you get it?
I've got maybe like 2,000.
Is that
users,
from WizardSourcer or?
You go to Google Chrome and get it.
Just type in Recruiter One. Okay.
Yeah, Recruiter One. So it's kind of cool. It's not. I was like, I'm just gonna make something that now it's only 1,000 active users, so not too many people.
Well, you're probably gonna have 5,000 more after today.
Hey, all right. I'm like, it's free.
And I want commissions for that too. I know it's free, so I want my commission.
Great tool. So I got one. Simple to use. Thank you, my wife.
Right. Shally will be the next reviewer.
Shally, great. Free.
What other tools are you using?
So yeah, it's a good question. So Text Expander is my go-to. It's amazing. It's the magic extension, like you mentioned, you can do so much with that tool, and it's phenomenal. It's such
you
a
have shortcuts on.
Yep.
You type in 3, 4, 5 or whatever, and it expands that. Yep.
Yep, exactly. That's amazing to use. Simple to understand. Another one, Sales Handy. I use Sales Handy since I have Outlook, and it tracks, anytime I send a message, how many times are they clicking on it? What location are they clicking on it? Is the email getting delivered to as well? They charge, it's like $100 for the year too as well. And it's simple, easy to understand. I never have any issues with this tool. One of my favorite actually is because I send out an email, wait, how many times did they click on it? It's just good to kind of have that too when you're doing mail merging too as well. They have their own mail merging kind of tool, and you can choose how many people you want to message to as well. And yeah, it's only like $25 a month for unlimited email sequences. So if you create one, if they respond back, it lets you know too as well. Simple, easy to understand in general too. So I like it. Some people, I'm sure there's other ones too that people use, but that's one that I recommend. Another one, Mailshake. Maybe you've heard of that one too.
Mailshake, like a milkshake.
Mailshake.
Milkshake.
Same kind of thing. It's cheaper too. So people, if you're cheap like me, it's maybe
I call it frugal.
Yeah, frugal. I don't want to spend much money.
Been doing it for 25 years, exactly. Yeah.
So look at that. Email at $44 a month. So the bigger ones are way more expensive than this too, but it's automated. You can sync it up with many other integration tools like HubSpot's, Zapier, and others. But yeah, it's up to 5,000 recipients per campaign. So, and it's all hosted on the site, so you don't need to link it up with Outlook, so it doesn't slow anything down. You can log into their dashboard and do it all there. Then it syncs up with your Outlook that way. So I've liked it. I've had this one and plus Sales Handy for a while too. So it's a good first step. If you got tons of money, of course there's Gem, Lemless, Inteller. There's many other ones that have more bells and whistles. But if you're cheap and frugal like us, this one's pretty simple and easy to use too as well. So those for my email automation. That's really awesome. Another really cool tool, WinX. Have you heard of WinX at all?
No, WinX.
WinX is really just tracks, basically your searches. So if you're doing a search, you're It tells you
Okay.
when's the last time you clicked on the links, and then you could add a little tag like, oh, follow up with this person, or you can add little tags to different searches too as well. So it's just a way just to,
Is that the URL for that, so I can post it on the chat here?
Wenx.io. So really, it's kind of cool.
WENEX.
Yep, right there. Wenx.io, and it's cool. So you could go to people's individual profiles, and then you could, create like a notification, like, okay, you did a phone screen and you want to follow up with this person in like 2 weeks. This little tool will just pop up and let you know, hey, I'll ping you, reach out to this person, has good experience, contact in 2 months, and it'll just give a little notification too as well. So Wenx, simple, easy. It's $8 a month too, but they have a free version too as well. And then you could see how your searches, you could add different tags too as well. So
cool. By the way, while you're on this topic, Todd Davis piped in.
Todd.
He said that Doug created a new extension called Clipstract. So I just posted the link there.
Clipstract. I have not heard of that. That's pretty cool. Oh, Doug, I've got to meet him several times, and he's quite the genius. So look at that. It's kind of a download the extension. You can scrape information. Mm-hmm. Easy to use.
It's just like the Zap Info, but I think it looks like it's Chrome specific, and that's all right, no problem. Yeah, come on back. We missed you. We missed you, man.
Come on back, Doug.
Missed you.
I think probably he sold it, and then maybe he felt bad, like, wow, the tool is gone.
Too many people were like depending on it.
Yeah, living and dying by it. So it's interesting. So. Wow, so request the app here. Let's see if I can get on their list. So you just have to request access, email, name. Google Todd Davis. How did I hear about it? I accept.
That's right.
All right. So that's a fun one too. There's so many other ones. Have you heard about Jobin LinkedIn automation? That's a newer tool.
Yeah.
I haven't really played around too much with it at all, though. But the lady and the team looks like they've been posting a lot on Facebook about it. So, but you could do bulk automated searches and do a lot within the tool. Automated outreach here, track messages.
Wow. What about texting? Are any of these good for texting, or do you use any texting apps?
The only
or
one
messaging other than email, like I don't know, Facebook, Pinterest, WhatsApp, anything else?
Simple texting is the one that I've used in the past too as well. That was the only one that I had access to as well. But yeah, simple texting. I know Mike Batman recommends this one too as well. Simple texting. It's easy to understand. Okay. Yep, simpletexting.com. But I haven't really done too much. I'm more like an email, old school kind of person. Getting their email, sending them an email. Please respond.
Stop if it works.
Yeah, but no, that's cool. Yeah, so that's one that I would recommend too. What was your question? Sorry, I kind of jumped to the next thing.
It was just, are you doing any texting or are you using
texting? Yeah, that was the one that I would recommend too, in general. But there's a lot of tools that I use. It's always changing, but it's interesting. Like you said, a lot of tools have kind of come and gone too. So, or they've combined to other tools in general. So, but that's kind of the newer tools.
Are you hiring sourcers? Because I know a couple of folks.
Yeah, we are hiring still.
You are?
Definitely. If anyone on the call, reach out to me on LinkedIn directly. I could connect you to some people. We're hiring. We're looking for tech recruiters. Still in demand.
And sourcer? You still do sourcing as a. Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting at Amazon.
It's a different job title though, or like
sourcing recruiters. So there's one like me at the beginning of the funnel. I reach out to people. I create strings. I engage people. I do initial screens, and then if they pass the first round, then I send them to a kind of a client lead. And a client lead is someone who prepares them for the final round, and then eventually gives them the offer too. So it's the way it's set up. It's like a sourcing recruiter plus a client lead.
Right. So you're hiring for that first job. So if anybody's listening, because I know some folks.
We got some people hiring.
Cool.
Yeah, we're still hiring as well.
Cool.
So that's good. I mean, tech is still active. We're still kind of working through this bullish market too as well. So yeah, but
dude,
yeah,
I just realized I told you I was gonna keep you for 30 minutes. It's like coming on an hour now.
Yeah,
man,
sure.
that's what happens when you have too much fun. Way too much fun
here.
Well,
it's been an honor.
To close, but let's wrap it up because folks got to go eat or something. Let's do this again, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate the time. It's always an honor. You're one of the first people I got to meet in the industry too, so I really just appreciate your eagerness to train and teach others too. So really, without you being here,
glad it rubbed off on you though.
It rubbed off on me. I wouldn't be here without your support too. So I really just appreciate that too.
My pleasure,
as well.
Man. Good to have you.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say? Parting wishes.
Have a good weekend. Happy 4th coming up here.
That's right. Yeah. Oh my God, it's coming up soon.
Can you believe it?
Bye, everybody. We will see you next Friday. I think it's Dean DaCosta coming up.
Whoa.
So,
awesome.
Yeah. Cool. See you, everybody. Awesome.